You can see the older stones down at the base, especially in between the rocks here from the Herodian period. By the way, as you go by here, look at this wall behind this bush here. This is from the time of Hezekiah. Hezekiah, the time of Isaiah, the prophet. He built this wall around the hill that we're on. And now we're officially entering into the old city.
أنا مسكت مرة موزة بشقامه. نعم.
Crusader, but you see the big huge stones that are there in the middle. That is from the time of Herod the Great. This is one of those 3 towers that guarded his palace from the north. Okay.
واحد من بعيد شلف على الترك بالايام هاي قبل سنتين. بمرق هاي المصيبه. Если шагов, мы попали в византийские древние века. Смотрите.
Ja nie pamiętam trochę.
Wiesz, na najlepsze ręki jak znalazł.
Kiinni on jotenkin helpompi, kun se tykkää kaikesta söpöstä.
Hallo!
Yes!
So the Dome of the Rock is over the holy place up on the Temple Mount, but the Mosque of Omar is built next to the holy place. This entrance that you see here is Crusader in date. Okay? Most of the structure that you see is Crusader or later. It's because this church, like all the churches in the Holy Land, have been destroyed and rebuilt over and over and over again. So, remember what we talked about yesterday. You have a tomb here. Then it was desecrated with a temple, with a statue of Jupiter over the top of where Jesus rose from the dead, and Venus over the top of Golgotha. Sorry. Then Constantine built his mausoleum over the tomb and a big church over the place of crucifixion. Okay, and now we have the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay, now the original entrance to this church was over on this side, coming in this way. And we want to talk also about an apse. See how this church has two domes? It's because there's two holy places instead of just one. So an apse is, like a circular wall that forms a half circle at the end. You know what I'm talking about? So this church, just like it has two domes, also has two apses. One apse marks the place where the tomb is, and the other apse marks where the crucifixion happened. Two different churches that are built. One of them is Constantine's, and the other one is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But do you see that both of them have an apse? Both of them have an apse in the same place. Do you see that? Everybody is told when they go through this door and they go up the stairs to the right that that's the place of crucifixion up here. That's not the place of crucifixion. We know where the place of crucifixion is because that's where the apse of the church is. That's the purpose of putting the apse there, is to mark the place of crucifixion. Okay? You can see why it was a good thing to talk about this in the room yesterday, because it gets kind of chaotic. You can even tell, just look at the rock. Does it look authentic, or does it look like it was brought in from somewhere else? And it has nothing to do with the tomb or anything like that. They believe that that's where Jesus' body was laid as they left, and this structure that you see here was built around it to protect what is left. And
That's it too.
yeah.
But you know
And
what?
if you come here and want to go inside there, you have to wait for like 3 hours. So, and there's really not anything to see.
And Jesus isn't there.
No, he's not there.
He is risen indeed.
And so when you have a place that's being quarried where the rocks are being cut, then that they really make ideal places for tombs, because you have these vertical walls left. And so we're not going to be able to get to it, but there's a on the other side of the tomb, they found a tomb like this. It's got kokim in it, they're called. And this isn't the tomb, but this is one like it. And so when that was found, it proves for absolute certainty that both this is outside of the city and that it was used as a cemetery at the time of Jesus, because you don't bury Jews inside the city. That's not kosher. So there's no question that this was a cemetery. Of course, we know that it was used as a cemetery in the first century, but even the archaeological evidence confirms that. Around, if you look at the masonry, you can see, as you can in most walls in Jerusalem, this is on a different line than this. So this is older, and this is not as old, and this looks like maybe last week. Okay, so the crucifixion happened on this side of the apse. I was showing you.
We can hear you out there.
Oh yeah?
I can hear you.
Okay, so this is the original church that came through this same area, and this apse here faced the tomb. So actually, the original apse of Constantine's church was in the same place, but it pointed, this apse is pointing east, and that original apse pointed towards the west, towards the tomb. Okay, and this has been, where you see the black in this, has been found archaeologically. And so the structure of the church and the original church and whatnot is known quite well. A few things that I want to point out. Out here, the two main gates from the north and the south of the old city are the Damascus Gate and Zion Gate. And the main road still to go north and south between those two gates was in ancient times what's called the Cardo Maximus, which is the main street, north and south running street, right out here. Okay, so let me get, do I have anyways, so originally you would come down that main street and then you would come up the stairs up to the place of crucifixion. Yes, so this is the main and old entrance. Now, of course,
you can see from the street.
That's correct. And you can't actually get in and out this way now, but this was the original entrance. So when Jesus was crucified up there, and then when Hadrian came along and desecrated it by putting his temple there, it's the same way. If you look at Jerusalem, then how should I say, the spiritual center, the heart of the city is the temple, right? But then something happened in history that even changed the city to where the emphasis used to be on the temple. The temple was destroyed within a generation of the time of Jesus, and then a new holy place in a different part of the city began. And when Hadrian came to the rubble left over from the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem, the first thing you do, he decided to build a Roman city. The first thing you do when you're going to build a Roman city is you choose where your main temple is going to be. He chose right here. Not up on the Temple Mount, right here. Okay, and he built his temple. He laid out the whole city based on this temple. So he put that Cardo Maximus that we still see a remnant of when we walk between Damascus and Zion Gate today. He laid that out, and he laid that out for access to his main temple here, up these stairs here. So you would come up in his day, you would come up to the temple, to the statue of Venus, as we talked about, and the worship there, and then behind where the tomb is, statue of Jupiter. That's why most people think that it's a temple to Jupiter, because the statue of Jupiter is in the Holy of Holies, so to speak, of the temple itself. See what I mean? And so this masonry that you see over here is very old. This is from the time of Hadrian, when this was the entrance into the temple. Okay, and through that door right there which is locked, and you got to get special permission. But if you go through that door and down, then on the rock is where this inscription that I was telling you about is located. Okay? The oldest Christian pilgrim inscription that we have. Most scholars date it to before Hadrian. And it says in ancient Latin, again, a boat pointing away from Golgotha, "Yes, Lord, we will go." Yeah. So this is it. This is you can see why people go to the Garden Tomb. It's much easier.
Yeah.
But again, if you take human nature into consideration, would we not expect the tomb of Jesus and the crucifixion place of Jesus 2,000 years later to be a crazy place? And to think of all the people every day that come from all over the world to this place. It's pretty amazing. This is the layout, the geography of Jerusalem. Okay, it's made up of two ridge lines, two mountain ridges. One is the watershed ridge that we've been on. The other one is the Mount of Olives. And then it's got two hills separated by three valleys. Okay, you see what I'm talking about? So this is the Kidron Valley, this is the Ben Hinnom Valley, and this is the Central Valley. Okay, this is the Eastern Hill, the Western Hill. Okay, the first city to go in, the first city that we read about in Scripture, Salem, went on this lower part of the Eastern Hill. Why? Because that's where the water is. Okay. Now that they had that problem even back then, that they had to, they couldn't get their city walls around the spring, the main water source. Okay. Then Solomon, in the time of Solomon, the city expanded and took in Mount Moriah. See, this is Mount Moriah. There's the rock that is underneath the dome of the rock today. And Solomon had to have built a Temple Mount. You can't build a building on top of a hill without first building a platform to put it on. So the temple went in at the time of Solomon, and then the Assyrians came. The Assyrians came and started killing the 10 tribes up in the north, and they didn't all stick around to get killed. A bunch of them ran south, and the Western Hill here became a refugee camp for the 10 northern tribes. Okay, and then Hezekiah then built a wall around those 10 tribes, or around those refugees. Does that make sense? Okay, and so then this is the city that got delivered in the Assyrian period. You won't ever see the 10 lost tribes in the Bible, because God doesn't just accidentally lose things. He preserved all 12 tribes in the remnant, known as Jews, that came out of the city that at that time was delivered by the Assyrians, later destroyed by the okay, let me skip that. Okay, then that, where is my, I took it out. Darn, because I showed it to you at that last place. It's over here, but then there's the Jewish, or the Herodian city, right? And then that's the one that was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. And then this is the one that Hadrian built. It wasn't even called Jerusalem. It's called Aelia Capitolina. Named Aelia was one of Hadrian's names, and Capitolina was named after also Jupiter. Okay? He put his temple in, chose where, look, he just had a couple statues up on the Temple Mount. Put his temple in right here. There's his main street. That's still the main way that you go between Damascus Gate and Zion Gate today. And then in of course, the next period with Constantine, or wait, I'm sorry, this is Aelia Capitolina. with the Roman temple, and then this is the one with the church after that. Okay. So here is that temple, the stairs that you see that you would have gone up, right? Are the stairs that are still over here. I mean, it's not the original stairs, but it's where the stairs were. And then, of course, in the next period, the mausoleum and the church. And by the way, when I showed you that topography with the hills and everything, if you just take an aerial photograph, this one was taken in 1931. You see the two hills, the Western Hill and the Eastern Hill, and the three valleys, and all right, let's say we get the heck out of here.